Begin the current Daf, Mesech Kesuvos Daf Ches. Begin on the last few words in Daf Ches and Beis, where we begin the well-known Yeshivish Sugya of Pesach, Pesuach, Mitzasi, which is obviously related to the halacha that opens up our Parak Masechta, Besula Nisli Mekdi, regarding that of Tainus Besulim, regarding the claim that a man gets married and he expects that she's a Besula, a virgin, and turns out that she's not, specifically regarding that it's open, which generally it's supposed to be closed, and regarding what the belief is of his claim, and regarding the consequences of that claim. Today's daf. Some things we're discussing today's daf are, as we said, regarding Ha'ima Pesach Besuach Mitzasi. Someone says that I found that the opening of the vagina should be really, the hymenal is supposed to be closing it up, and he says they find it open, therefore she's not a besula, that nemen is that is believed to make her forbidden. So there's two ramifications. One's regarding being aser, which is, hey, she's not a besula, or what happened? Obviously something wrong happened over here, she's forbidden to me. And regarding linyamam, regarding to say that, no, say by the Kriyas Ksuba, she's a besula gets 200. If she's not a besula, she doesn't get 200, maybe 100, maybe nothing. And regarding what we believe him for. Additionally, what comes up in today's daf is that if a married woman was mizana b'ratzin, she becomes a surah to her husband, and she loses her ksuba. So let's say they just got married now, but they were engaged already for 12 months. So sometime in that year, she's mizana. So there's two things that happen. She becomes asa to her husband, and she loses her ksuba. Now, a bas Yisrael, who is violated ba'inus, she remains muteris to her husband. An Eishes Kain, on the other hand, who is violated even if ba'inus, is a surah to her husband. That's something unique about Eishes Kain. Even if she was violated, even when it was not baratzin, she still becomes forbidden to her husband. An Eishes Ish that was mizana is forbidden to her husband if it's with two witnesses. Now there is an exception to that if the husband does kinui, warns her, and she secludes herself with another man, and we have witnesses for that. And even if there's one person who says that she was mitami, that she was mizana, that also would be enough to make her aser. And that again relates to the concepts of zinsatachta, that she's mizana when she's married with him, again in contrast if she had relations before she was ever married, and zinsabaratzin, that if she did it willingly versus if it was coerced. The well-known Talmudic dictum also comes up today's daf of Shavei Nafshei Chaticha De'Isur, that a person can make something forbidden on himself. He's believed regarding himself that this is forbidden and has the halacha as if it's aser. Sfeika Dares al Chumra, although we know that there's a doubt regarding biblical law, we go stringently, but there could be a situation that we're going to go to kula by a sfeika. When there's a doubt of a doubt, it's like a double doubt, then even by a dairaisa we go leniently. And also the concept of chazaka inam tarech b'sud mafsida. That's why this is one of the yeshivish mesechtas. A lot of the concepts chazaka and safek and roiv will come up here in this daf. That there's a chazaka that a person, we believe him that he's pesach besuch mitzasi. Why do we believe him? What, he's just coming with a claim and he wants to make her lose a ksuba possibly? Because a person's not going to put in the effort to make a whole chasna and then create a loss for that. What do you think he would do? Why would he set himself up for failure? He wouldn't. And then if he's saying that this is not what I thought and I want out, so therefore then he would be believed based on that chazak. To begin the current daf of Chesma Beis, the bottom line, Amar Rabbi Lazar, this again, like we said, it relates to the opening halacha of our Besechta. We said that the Besula gets married on a Wednesday. That was Besula Nissa, that's the title of this parak. Why do we say he gets married on a Wednesday? Because if he would have Tainus Besulim, he has marital relations on Wednesday night, so he would see something that this is not a Besula, Hayimashtim Lebesin, and maybe she was mizana, and therefore she becomes forbidden, like we say, but nistra b'nidma, a married woman who is mizana willingly becomes a surah to her husband and also loses her ksuba. So he comes to the bezin next morning. He says, "Hey, she's not a besula." So related to that, Amar Belasa, as we continue to Testament out, if someone says Pesach Pesuach Mitzasi, I found that the door was open, the opening was open. So Rashi explains, up until now in this Masechta, we were talking about what's called a tainus dam. And therefore we said you have to have a mappa, you have to have a cloth, you have to have shushbin, you have people be attendants to see was there blood, was there not, because the hymenal, there's a certain dam that bursts when the hymens are ruptured. So why are you talking about Pesach Besuch? Why don't you talk about if there was blood here or not? So Rashi says, let's discuss it differently, but that, for example, if she's from a family called Durkati, as the Gemara will tell us on the next daf, Yedem Abayz, that this family, they didn't have dam besulim. So therefore you can't talk about the dam, they didn't have. Or the cloth got lost, and they don't know if there was blood or not. But what's clear to the chassan was that he found it open. So therefore, again, the taina of dam is not applicable. So therefore, it's only regarding that of the Pesach Pesuach. This has a whole discussion regarding Begeres, regarding an older girl, that regarding if she has dam, if she has, like, because or if it's open. But upon him, this is the claim that he's saying. I found it open. So it says, Rebbe Lazar Neman Lo Eisher Love, he's believed to make her forbidden on him. Meaning, even though this thing that he's talking about cannot be verified, only based on what he's saying, no one's going to ever know if what he did was closed or open. But regarding himself, he's believed because of what's called Shaveh Nafshi Chaticha D'Yisur. He can make it forbidden on him. He's saying, this woman is forbidden on me because she's obviously had done something inappropriate. But, this is how Rashi says, Taisa disagrees, but regarding to make her lose the Kesuvos, that is not believed, because how can you go ahead and she's deserving of a Kesuvos? I'm sure saying, oh, I found it open. How do we know, verify what you say? How can you make her lose her Kesuvos? So Rashi says that he's believed that she's forbidden to him, but to make her lose a Kesuvos is not. That's Rabbi Lazar's teaching. That asks the Gemara, but Vamai, why are you even saying that he's believed to make her forbidden on himself, even if you believe him that she already had obviously cohabited with someone else prior, because obviously this was open, but Svek Svekahu, this is a double doubt. Why is it a double doubt? Because, first of all, Safek Tachta. We're not sure, was this within, let's say, the last 12 months? Was she mezana once they were engaged? Safek Ein Tachta. Maybe she did this 5 years ago. Before they ever got engaged, she was mezana. That wouldn't make her forbidden on him. If a girl is mezana, that doesn't make her prohibited. Now, so that's one safek. Was it when they were engaged? Was it not? Even you can say she did this znus within the last 12 months. Safek ba'aynes, we're not sure, was she raped? And the anusa is permitted if she's the wife of a Yisrael, as the Gemara tells later on of Nun Beis, from a pasuk behila in Nitfasa, that she was not forced, and therefore she's permitted. But if she, that's why she's forbidden. But if she was forced, then she's going to be permitted. So we're not sure, was it ba'aynes, safek baratzin, whether it was willingly. So this has safek. It's a svek, it's a double doubt. There's two questions that we have over here. And even if it's deraisa, svek, we go l'kulo. So even if we believe in that what he found was open, but why are you saying that she's forbidden to him? Who said that means that she's forbidden? Says the Gemara, right, good question, but like Tzrichi, you're right, if necessary, this halacha is talking about two specific options of what the case is. Either we're talking about Be'eshes Kohen, which what's unique about Eshes Kohen, if she's married to a Kohen, even if she was raped, she's still forbidden to him. So there's no suffix on the suffix ratzin. It's still one suffix. Now, Taisus, and just to point out, there's a lot of interesting, Talmudic Taisus in over here, just to highlight. So Taisus says, wait a second. Why, you're telling me Eshes Kohen, why didn't you say that she has a chazaka, that she's kasha for kahuna? Every woman has a chazaka, a presumed prior status. So maybe say that she was not mezana tachtav. You're saying that there's one suffix. Suffix was a tachtav or not? Because you don't have the suffix einis or ratzin. Okay, but why don't you have a chazaka that she's kosher to the kahuna because of her chazaka that she had prior? So Tzai says, no, the adra, but we should say that now she had to be in now when she was engaged in the last 12 months. Why should we say that? Because you have a cheskes haguf. The chazaka is her body that she was a besula. The presumed status is that her body was still in the virginity. Why should we presume otherwise? So although we're asking that there's chazaka that she's kasha for kahuna, on the same hand we have a chazaka that says that her body is as it always was, and therefore we're going to assume it happened the latest possible, which was just now when she was engaged, not before. Again, just to highlight some of the interesting discussions that happen here a little bit further into the page. But that's one approach. There's only one suffix. She's the Eshes Kohen. Over here, if you want, you could say we're talking about Be'eshes Yisrael. Really, she's the wife of a Yisrael. So again, so why are we saying she would be forbidden on him because of what he's saying, even if we believe him? But it's a svek sveka. No, it's not a svek sveka. You know why? Because interesting case. If we're going to Kabul Babu Kedushin, the father married her off when she was under 3 years old. Already, the neighbor had a 4-year-old boy, and this is your Malkala was 2 years old, and says, okay, Mach the Kedushin, he accepted the ring from the boy's family. Now, they obviously didn't get married right away, they were engaged. But being engaged is forbidden as a regular Eishes Ish. Now, after the chuppah, this boy and girl got older. Now he's 16 and she's 14, and they go to the chuppah. And now she's an adult. Now, if she was seduced, it would be considered as a seduction, not as an oinus. The reason why we have to say that is because pitu katan is an oinusu. If she was seduced as a young girl, it would still be considered as an oinus, as if she was violated. But she's over bas mitzvah. So she's going to the chuppah at age 14. Oh, so there's only one suffix. What's the suffix? Suffix oinus, suffix ratzon. We're not sure, did this happen like 2 weeks ago, that she did it willingly? Or was it that she was violated somewhere over this whole long engagement? But suffix tachtav, suffix ain't tachtav. The doubt of maybe it happened when they're engaged or not is not applicable over here. Because had she let's say as a 1-year-old, let's say someone had molested this girl as a 1-year-old before they were engaged, the Besulim would have been there. As the Gemara tells them, that when you're less than 3 years old, it's like putting your finger in the eye where the tears come out, but then the tears replenish. And therefore, the girl's Besulim would have been back. So if he finds when he's 16 and she's 14 and they finally come to the chip after being engaged for all this 12 years, and then he says, it comes to the rabbi, and the next morning he says, Pesach Besulim Mitzasi. So there's only one suffix. Suffix is, was it ba'inus or was it b'ratzon? But was it tachtav or not tachtav? It definitely was tachtav. Because had she even been violated when she was 1 year old, it would have been back. Anytime under 3, it comes back. That's why for a lot of halachas, you always say by a girl, 3 is always the age for erva and this and that, because that's the age of labia. Anything under that, it wouldn't have been removed. So therefore, that's the second approach the Gemara gives to tell us, why are we saying you say Pesach, Mesuach, Mitzasi, Eis, Svek Sveka? No, it's not Svek Sveka, either by that of an Eishes Kayin, which is that of, you wouldn't have the suffix of Einus Ratzon, or we're talking about that she's married to that she got engaged under age 3, and therefore again, there's no suffix of Tachta or Ein Tachta. So that's the case. It says the Gemara, Maika Mashmalan. What is really Rebbe Lazar coming to teach us? Tanina. We learned in the Mishnah, Masechtas Kedushin, that a person is believed regarding himself to make something that's forbidden based on what he's saying, which is essentially the teaching of Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar is just saying that you're believed to make something forbidden, and you said, I found Pesach Mesuach. Now, we wanted to know it's a spec section, no, it's one suffix, Eishes Kayin, or got engaged under 3. So, you're believed to say that you found it open, so she can be forbidden to you. It says the Gemara, so what's the Chiddush in that? That's the Mishnah Masechtas Kedushin. The Mishnah says as follows, if a man says to a woman, says, we got engaged. The Yom asks, she said, what are you talking about? We never got engaged. So the halach is, himuteres b'kreivav, she's permitted in his relatives, because she doesn't agree that they ever got engaged. Which the Gemara Kedushin explains, talking about where he tells her, there were 2 people that witnessed this Kedushin, but they went overseas. The reason is because his claim itself of being engaged would not be valid. You need to have 2 witnesses. So if you have 2 witnesses, how could she say no? He's telling her, yeah, they went overseas. So he's claiming, we got engaged. And she's saying, never happened. So she's been in his relatives, because she based on what she's saying, they were never engaged. But who wants to be home? But he's forbidden in her relatives, let's say her mother, her daughter, her sister, because of Shavya Nafshi, Chaticha D'Yisur. Which is, like regarding, when it reverberates, it's like the 2 million that are listening.
2, 3.
Okay, continue.
Anyway, so she's forbidden he's forbidden on his relatives. So what's that halachic principle? It's Shavya Nafshi, Chaticha D'Yisura. So what's the chiddush of Rebbe Lazar if you have a Mishnah Masechtas Kedushin that says this concept of Shavya Nafshi? So as the Gemara, no, it's slightly different. Ma'oditim, what would you say? Hasan b'vade kimle. There, he knows for sure, he's not hallucinating, that he got engaged to her. So therefore, of course, Shavi Nafshi would work. Al Hacha, but over here, when he says Pesach Mitzuk Mitzasi, this young chasnel is 17 years old, gets married, I would say, because he's single, he's not so proficient. Make him Hutale Kimle. He doesn't really know this very well. He thinks that it was open. And every chassan is all afraid. He doesn't know, what did I do? Did I not do? He calls up the chassan Rebbe 3 o'clock in the morning. He says, what did I do? Or did I not do it? Right? So and I would say maybe it's not like that. And therefore she would not be forbidden. Kamash Malam, that's what Rabbi Loz is coming to tell us, that Pesach Pesuch Mitzasa is Neman, he's believed to say this, and therefore to make it Shavi Nafshe Chaticha D'Yisur. That's a big chiddush. That's something you wouldn't know from Mishnah Masechta Kedushin. Yes, I know Shavi Nafshe, but maybe only if you're klar that hello, we got engaged. But to say Pesach Pesuch, maybe you wouldn't really be believed for that, and that's the chiddush. Then the Gemara says, Miyom Rabbi Loz, did Rabbi Loz really say this, that a woman's mizana, she becomes forbidden based on what the husband is saying? But Rabbi Laza says that that a woman does not become forbidden on her husband. Only when it involves a warning, where he tells her, I don't want you to seclude yourself with that man. Vistira. And she actually secludes. And there are two witnesses who come and testify that she did seclude with that man after the warning. Like the story that happened with David and Bathsheba. So the Gemara first jumps in and says, wait a second, but Tizra is illogical, what you just quoted from Rabbi Lazar? Maisa Shahaya, what the story with David and Bathsheba you think was Bikini Bestiraha? Was with a warning and with being secluded? But there was no warning over there. No one warned David not to seclude with Bathsheba. You think that actually made Bathsheba forbidden on Uriah, who was her husband? Says Rashi, if it would have made her forbidden on Uriah, then David would also be forbidden, which David remained with Bathsheba, because the Gemara tells us inside that Bazayin Abayz, Kashem Shasur Labal, Kachasur Laboyo. Any woman that's forbidden to her husband then becomes forbidden to the man that she had relations with. And David was the one that had relations. So if that would have made her forbidden to Uriah, the husband, then she would have been forbidden to David too, and she wasn't. So what are you talking about? So the Gemara says, no, Holocaust. That's not difficult. In other words, to ask that wouldn't reject this last teaching of Rabbi Lazar, which we're using to ask on his other teaching. What the last teaching of Lazar was saying was as follows. A woman does not become forbidden to her husband only if she was first warned and then secluded. Meaning, we learned this out from the story of Bathsheba, that you're right, the two questions actually answer themselves. There was no kinestira, and therefore she's not become forbidden. So we actually learned that out from there. But had there been kinestira, then she would have been forbidden.
Didn't they give her a gap before?
Oh, so the Gemara is going to get to that. No pun intended. So therefore, the question comes back to its original place. So we become Makom Kasha. So now we're back to the question. Kinu is stira in. It sounds like that. What makes a woman forbidden her husband if there's a warning and she was secluded? But Pesach Pesuach Loi, if there was no warning and there was no witnesses that she was secluded, then that wouldn't make her forbidden. So Pesach Pesuach Loi, just saying that you found it opening, even if she was Mizana, that wouldn't make her forbidden. Where's the kinui? Where's the stira? Meaning, where's the witnesses for this all? Even if you know that it was open, that she was Mizana, that wouldn't make her forbidden. So what are you asking? Meaning, what is Rabbi Lazar saying? How could he say in his first teaching, Pesach Pesuach, that we quote on today's Amid, but Rabbi Lazar has another teaching that it has to be only kinus stira. So the Gemara says, wait a second. Well, Tamech, according to your reasoning, kinus stira in, you really think the only way a woman becomes forbidden to her husband is if there was a warning and she was secluded? But Adam Loy, let's say witnesses come along and say, hello, buddy, we saw your wife 2 blocks down with another guy. What, you think she's not going to become forbidden because the husband didn't warn her first? But that's a pasuk in the Torah and Ram Chavtal. If you find that there was something illicit that happened, and moreover, the pasuk says v'hila netfasa, that if she was not forced, that asur, that she's forbidden. So obviously, it's not only with kin and steel. Ella rather, hachikam. Now this is what Rabbi Lazar was saying. A woman will not become forbidden to her husband with one witness, because we learn out in the beginning of Seita Dav Gimel Beis Davar Davar from moment. It says the word Davar, Babal Yerchoba Erev Davar, and it says the word Davar Baki that Al Pishraim Edom Yakum Davar. Just like over there, it's with two witnesses. Also by Arayis, it's going to be with two witnesses. So we will not become forbidden our husband with one aid. El B'Shnei Eidim, right? They need two witnesses. But that's what we're coming to say. The Bekinu Ustira. But if there's witnesses that he warned her, and there's witnesses that she then secluded after the warning, then even with one witness, meaning even if the fact that what we call the tumma is that the actual witnessing the act of intimacy, that even though there's only one witness, nami, that he'll also be believed, because the pasuk says in Midbar Hey, the nistara v'hi nitba, she secluded, she became tamik, and it says ve'ed ein ba, that there was no witness. Now the Gemara says in Seita Beis and Beis, wherever it says the word aid, it actually means two witnesses. And the Torah is telling you aid ein ba, meaning there was no two witnesses, but rather there's only one witness. And the pasuk is telling you, but he loy nitfas, and if she was not forced, she can be forbidden. Why? Because there's what's called reglayim l'davar. There's indicating factors that seem to be to tell us that she was mazana because he warned her, and that we have witnesses for, and she secluded that we have witnesses for. And with one witness testifying that she was matame, so that's going to make her into a vadai saita, not to a suffix saita. So now we have no more difficulty anymore in Reb Laza, because the Pesach Pesuach, when he says I found it open to make her forbidden on himself, that's kishnei edim dami. That's like two witnesses, because it's so clear to him that she was nivala because it's open, and therefore obviously you don't need to have two witnesses, because a witness is only to make verification. The person's believed on himself, like we're saying with the halachic principle of Shabbat Nafshei Chatika D'Yisura, and therefore obviously you don't have to have only Kina and Stira, and therefore it's not difficult as a contradiction of the teaching of Rebbe Laza. Now, Mechitim we're going to say, going back to the story, the Gemara has a parenthetical question. So we answered the question that Rebbe Laza is not a contradiction on himself. Yes, a man is believed to say Pesach B'Soch, just like two Edom say that she was Mezana. He says elsewhere it's only Kinis Tira, that's with Eid Echad. That's the Chiddush in Eid Echad. But a person says himself that he found it open, it's no less than two witnesses, because like Taisa says, it's called Kimle. He knows. He knows that she's obviously, if he knows that he saw himself, it's the same thing as two Eidim. He doesn't have to have literally two Eidim to verify. But then the Gemara just says, you're going to say, going back to the story with David and Bathsheba, why did they not make Bathsheba forbidden on David? The way Rashi says, the Taisa disagrees, but he says many witnesses knew about this story. So it's like Al-Pishnei Eidim. It's like everyone knew that David was Mazal Bathsheba. So it says the Gemara Hasam Einas Haba. Interestingly, what happened is because he violated her, so an anusa is not forbidden to her husband, so then she's not forbidden to the boil. So therefore, that's why she should not become forbidden to David, because it was a case of Einas with David and Bathsheba. That's one approach. If you want, you can say another approach. As we continue to Amid Beis, that as someone just brought up before, is called a Yoitz L'Mechemes Beis David, that whoever goes out to fight in the wars of the Malchus Beis David, get Krisis Kaisam Le'ishtar. So he would write a divorce document to his wife. The words of Rashi is that if he dies during war, it should be a get from when he writes it. Taisa elaborates and says it doesn't mean only dying, it means in general the get was right away. Or you died in war, which although he didn't die right away, but Taisa explains that it was if he doesn't make it back at the end of the war, so then it's also going to be considered a get from right now. And therefore, since even if David, let's say, was Mazana, so to speak, with Bathsheba, but it wasn't retroactively, because it turns out the moment that Uriah had left for war, he had already divorced her because he never made it back. They discuss it, but it's a suffocation, so how could David have done that? There's a Gemara that says it was suffocation, but the point is that ultimately she was divorced. Because retroactively, since he never made it back, even though he came back and then he sent it back, never made it back at the end of the war, turns out she was divorced from the moment that he left, when he was deployed for the war, and therefore she ultimately was permitted for David. So the pasuk in Shmuel Aleph that by the Muhammad with Shaul HaMelech, that Yishai said to David that he sent David on a mission to go to his brothers who were fighting in the war. that your brothers, you should go to them and check out what's going on with them. And their aruva, their erev, you should take. Which this was what Yishai was telling his son David. So David learned from his father Yishai to do this also when people fought wars for him, to take their eruva from the warriors. It says, what does it mean that he took their eruv? It's things that are mixing what's between him and her, meaning you should take away the kedushin. That the eruv is the kedushin that makes the connection between husband and wife. That's tikach. You should take it from between them through a get. So therefore, you see that Yishai told them that we don't know what's going to happen to your brothers during the war. It might be MIA. It might be who knows what might happen. They might be captive or might die. So to avoid problems of Aguna, so it says a little bit more than not just like case of Ibum, but be that as it may, we want to have that get, and therefore again David was permitted to Bathsheba either because it was a sort of situation of illness or because he was actually divorced. Now Omar Baya says, going back to the halacha of Rebbe Lazar, he says we also found this in the halacha of our Mishnah, that if someone says Pesach Besuch Mitzasi, that I found her open, she's going to be forbidden on him, and we don't say that he's not kimli, that he doesn't know well enough, and we say she's going to be forbidden. How so? Because all the opening words of our Masechta. Basula, this is Liyam Revi. We said that the Basula gets married on a Wednesday. So we said Liyam Revi, and it's specifically on a Wednesday, Liyam Chamishalei, but not on Thursday. My time, what's the reason? So we said, because he's going to get cooled off until the following Monday, that's the next time the courts are open, and then he's not going to go ahead and come to court. So the question is, Ulamai, what were the Rabbanan so particular if he's going to cool down? And that is, Ilamesabla ksuba, if it's because we're going to giving her ksuba, that the ksuba of a basula is 200. And if he's not going to contest, he's going to have to give her ksuba of 200. So says the Gemara, what's the problem? Mesabla, well, let him give her 200. Why should we make her lose out if he's giving it willingly? He cooled down, so why are we bothered by that he's paying out, he's shelling out the cash, and he's not contesting it? Ella rather, obviously, no, it's la'isrullah. What we were particular about as the rabbis was that we don't want him to cool down, because if she's really forbidden to him, and he's going to maintain the marriage to her, that we were concerned about, and therefore we specifically want him to get married on a Wednesday. And with the Katoin Taina, obviously that he's coming and making a claim that would actually make her forbidden on him. My love isn't the claim that he's making, the Katoin Taina's Pesach Besuach, that he's claiming that he found that it was open. How does the Gemara know that? Not like the Gemara rejects it of Taina's Dam. So Taisa explains that a person would not get cooled down if he doesn't find blood. He would be very concerned. Pesach Besuach, you could say maybe he'd cool down because, hey, you know what, maybe I don't really know what this is. It's open, it's closed, you think I know? But Dam, he knows. The rabbi told him they learned with for 3 months when he was engaged. He said, okay, you're going to have the blood, and this and that. And he's looking, there's no blood. So he's libay nightfight. So that's what the Gemara assumes, that the case that he's going to calm down is when there's Pesach Besuach. So you see from the Mishnah, like Rabbi Lazar, that if you make a claim of Pesach Besuach Matzasi, that you never lo love. And that was the whole point of why we want you to come to run to court, so that you don't maintain a marriage with a woman that's forbidden. So the Gemara, no, the Katoin Tain is done. No, it's not true. It's told about where he would make a claim of the blood, which is a verified claim. And you can't say over there that Loy Kimli that he doesn't know. He's not blind. There was no blood. But at Pesach Besuach, I can tell you that maybe Loy Kimli, we don't trust him that he really knows what he's talking about. And therefore, he would not be able to make such a claim. So you don't see a proof to Rabbi Lazar from the halacha of Mishnah. Could be it was for a claim of Tainis Damim, not for of Pesach Besuach. Now, continuing on this halacha of Pesach Besuach, another similar teaching, but Amar B'Yehuda Mishmul, which according to Rashi, this is disagreeing. According to Tais, it's just complimenting. Ha'ima Pesach Besuach Mitzasi. So if someone says that, look, we had Bia, and I found it open, there was no obstruction. So Neman even lavsidik subasa. He's believed, based on his own wording, to make her lose her ksuba. As the Gemara is going to explain later on, the reason for this, why this would be, is because of the chazaka. Because really the husband's obligation to provide a ksuba is only the drabanan. And they believed him if he says Pesach Besuach Tzasi Neman, because of a chazaka. We have a presumption, and chazaka is a halachic categorization, that a person would not be matriach himself in the Suda, make a ganze chasna, spend $150,000, and then the next day come to the courts and come to the rabbis, and that's it. He wants out because she wasn't a basula. He wouldn't make such a thing up and cause such a loss, and therefore, says Shmuel, he's even believed to make her lose her ksuba. Now, Amar Yosef says, "My kamash malan." Says, "What's the chiddush of Shmuel?" Tanina, there's a Mishnah on Daf Yud Beis. What's the Mishnah saying? Mishnah says that if someone eats by his father-in-law, and this is by the days that's between when they're engaged and the marriage, so it depends where. Says the Mishnah, if it's Yehuda, if it's in the area of Judea, and it was Shaloi Be'edim, meaning the time he spent by his shver during the engagement period, there was no witnesses to testify that they weren't secluded. So we don't know. No one knows what happened during the time that he was there over that engaged period. So then, says the Mishnah, he can't make a claim of besulam, of that there was no besulam when they come to the chuppah. And the reason is Mishnah because in Yehuda, as the Gemara tells later in Daf Yud Beis, they actually specifically would have the couple seclude themselves so that they should become comfortable and be more intimate. So the Gemara makes a diuk. Sounds like Yehuda lemotzi time. Doesn't ask on this diuk exactly, but the diuk the Gemara makes is it sounds like that only Judea he cannot make such a claim. And the reason is because again they're intimate and maybe he had penetrated, maybe whatever, but Habagalil motzi time. But in the Galilee where they weren't secluded, then he can make such a claim. Now, what is the claim for? If it's to make her forbidden on him, then why you tell me in Judea that he's not believed? If someone says, I know, I was not intimate with her. Now, most definitely, she was mizanah with someone else. So if that's the case, that's what's called Shavei Nafshei Chaticha D'Yisuva. Because who cares in the Galilee or in Yehuda? I'm not insane. I know I was not, we didn't even touch each other. We didn't come close to each other. So therefore, why wouldn't he believe in Yehuda? Obviously he would be believed. Elalav, so rather obviously what you're saying that he's only believed in the Galilee, but not in the area of Judea, must be lafsidik subasa. Must be to create a loss of her ksuba. Okay. Udukatoyin taina. And he's making a claim, which, as Rashi points out, in Judea, we would not trust him to make her lose her ksuba, because we say that he probably was intimate with her when they were engaged, because they generally seclude in Judea. But in the Galilee, he can make such a claim because they don't seclude over there. Now, what's the claim he's making? My love isn't the claim that it's the day after the chuppah, and he claims the katoin tainis pesach besuach. He claims that I found that it was open. Now, even though there's no witnesses for this, and it's not a verified claim, we're just relying on him, but we say if he wasn't telling the truth, he wouldn't just create a loss of a whole chasna he had last night. If he hated her, he would have divorced her from the beginning, and he would not have spent that $100K on the wedding. Now, even so, in Judea we don't believe him. Why not? Why don't you say the same chazaka? What do you think? He's moronic because he lives in Judea, he's going to spend $100K for all the pictures and the flowers and everything like that? No, we say maybe he had bia when they were engaged, and he forgot. Doesn't remember. Or maybe because of his love for her, he penetrated, but he didn't realize that he broke her basulam. So that's what Rashi explains. So therefore, that's when Yehuda, we don't believe him. Even though he's saying, what do you mean? Wait, I'm crazy? I would never spend $100K on a wedding, and I'm telling you, it was open. So even if it was open, they would believe you. You don't realize what you guys did probably when you guys were engaged. Now, but one thing is, what's the chiddush of Shmuel? Didn't we just prove in the Mishnah Daf Yud Beis that a person is believed to say Pesach B'Such Mitzasi even Lafsidik Subasa? Like we see that is believed in the Galilee? Says the Gemara, loy. No. Truthfully, I could tell you by something that he cannot verify, he's not believed to make a loser ksuba. And the Midiga, the Mishnah on Daf Yud Beis, that you want to be Medayik, but in the Galilee he could make a claim. You're right. He can make a claim to make a losing ksuba, but it has to be a verifiable claim. The Kotoin Tainis Daman, where he's claiming that there was no dam. For example, there were attendants that attended to them, and therefore there was no deception over here. It's not like he saw the dam and he just threw it away. It's a verifiable claim, which was that the witness, that the attendant says, yeah, we didn't see any blood on the sheets, nothing was here. And therefore that's when the Galilee would be believed. But we don't have a right to Shmuel's halacha that even something that's not verifiable, like saying Pesach B'Sukkot, but no one will ever know, no one can ever know, only him who was intimate with her, that he could say that Pesach B'Sukkot B'Tzasi, that was Chiddush of Shmuel, that we didn't know from the Mishnah of Yud Beis, that to say that he's even Neman L'Hafsidik Sabasa. Thank you to any time for hosting.